Welcome back. It's the 0 to 100 podcast. It's episode 152, the early grade. And in this episode, I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on the Dallas Cowboys 2026 draft class. Also, going to be utilizing the Athletics Dane Brugler's The Beast to see what he had to say about the Cowboys draftees before the draft. Called this episode the early grade because most people give a draft grade for the teams once the draft is over. I always found that to be a little premature, especially because you don't know if these players are going to actually be good or not. Feel like you can't give the Cowboys or any NFL team a really good grade on their draft until the season is actually over. So this is literally just an early grade of what I think the Cowboys draft class was like. Also in this episode is going to be what am I watching? Per usual, it's in that segment I'll be giving a little review of the shows or movies that I've been watching recently and let you know if they're worth checking out. I also will be very briefly touching on the latest of the George Pickens saga. The conspiracy theorists within Cowboys Nation are in full force after one of Adam Schefter's latest reports. And so I don't want to spend a lot of time on it because to me it's business as usual for the Cowboys in the offseason, especially when someone is up for a contract. And I just want to spend more time on the actual team as opposed to speculation on what the Cowboys are going to do with Pickens, especially based off of reports that aren't 100% accurate. There is no guest today. I'm flying solo. And just a reminder that there is going to be a visual and audio version of the 0 to 100 podcast. So be sure to check out both in the platforms that you listen to my podcast. Once again, it's episode 152, the early grade. Let's go. So the draft is over, and the Dallas Cowboys draft class is officially in the books. They drafted with their 11th pick Caleb Downs, the safety from Ohio State. With their second pick at pick number 23, where they traded back with the Philadelphia Eagles, they took Malachi Lawrence, the edge from UCF. With their third round pick that they got from the San Francisco 49ers at pick number 92, they took the he was listed as an edge, but the way the Cowboys are definitely going to be using him as his inside linebacker. It's Jayshon Barham, the from Michigan, and they had 3 fourth-round picks. The first was pick 112. They took the offensive tackle from Penn State, Drew Shelton. The pick 114, they took the cornerback from Florida, Devin Moore. And then with their final pick in the 4th round, they took the was a defensive end. The Cowboys are going to be using him as a defensive tackle, LT Overton. And then finally, their last pick in the 7th round, they took the wide receiver from East Carolina, Anthony Smith. So my first reaction, you have to start with Caleb Downs and Malachi Lawrence, which were taken in the first round. First off, to be able to get Caleb Downs, that was good enough. And, if you've been paying attention, especially to the battle of the mocks, the final mock draft that, Teddy and JR had tried to run, Caleb Downs was always the dream. Like, I remember when I went through Daniel Jeremiah's final mock draft. In fact, I did like a pre-draft show, and I had said going on a review of Daniel Jeremiah's mock, Peter Schrager's mock, and Mel Kiper's top 10 picks. I had said that Daniel Jeremiah's draft is who I would love for the Cowboys to do, and that's he did correctly guess that the Cowboys took Caleb Downs and Malachi Lawrence. Now he had Caleb Downs falling to the Cowboys at 12, and I remember, like I said in that episode, that I was skeptical of it because the Giants had 2 picks within the top 10. They had 5-10, and everybody knew how much John Harbaugh was saying that he loved Caleb Downs. I mean, even before, like the second he took the job in New York, and so he had safety Ed Reed for years with him in Baltimore. You just thought, okay, this dude's going to take either Sonny Styles or Caleb Downs, and it just felt like that was going to happen. And so you knew the draft was going to have some surprises, but you needed some luck for Caleb Downs to be able to get there. And like the first domino really fell when, to me at least, like you could argue and say, like some people say, they felt like the domino fell when the Lions, the Cardinals took the running back Jeremiah Love at 3, which was a shock, but it came out like right before the draft that they were very interested in Love. So it wasn't a complete shock because they were tipping. Now, a lot of people thought, oh, they're just saying that because they want to try to force people to trade up to get Love because they've been making it very known that they were willing to trade down. But I don't think they could. Well, they definitely couldn't get any trade partners to give them something that they wanted. So they took Jeremiah Love. But there was that, breadcrumbs laid that they could actually do it. So the thing that threw it for a loop to me was you had Arvell Reese, the linebacker slash edge from Ohio State, there at 4, and you thought the Titans being, having a defensive head coach in Robert Saleh, that okay, they were going to take possibly, like they were definitely linked to Love, but if they couldn't get Love, then they would take the best defensive player that was left on the board. So you thought that was going to be either Arvell Reese or Sonny Styles. And it shocked everybody. It definitely shocked me when they took the wide receiver Carnell Tate from Ohio State. And that, in my mind, is where the draft turned because nobody was expecting them to take wide receiver that early. They took Carnell Tate, which left Arvell Reese on the board. And I do feel like the Giants had every intention of going offense, defense, with their 2 picks. I think the offensive player that they probably would have taken with that pick was probably either, wide receiver Jordan Tyson or actually, no, I'm sorry, not wide receiver. I think it was going to be like Francis Mauigoa and, and then they would take like Caleb Downs or Sonny Styles with their 10th pick. And I think the fact that Arvell Reese was sitting right there for the Giants, they felt like, oh, we can't pass this up. This dude was being talked about to be either the 2nd pick or the 3rd pick, pretty much all the way leading up to the draft. So for him to be there at 5, it's just hard to pass up that kind of talent. I mean, it's almost interesting to see if they had to passed up on him, if the Cowboys would have really put forth a legitimate shot at trying to trade up with the Browns to take Arvell Reese, but who knows? Who cares? So that left the door open. And then the next shot came was we knew that the Browns wanted to trade back. That was very clear. Like their general manager, Andrew Berry, had made it very clear that he wanted to trade back. And so you saw the Chiefs trade up, and that was interesting because you were thinking like, well, who do they want to trade up for? Like Arvell Reese is going. You know that they possibly want pass rusher, cornerback. They took the cornerback Mansour Delane, which wasn't a shock to me because I figured Mansour Delane would actually be there for them at 9, and they would just take him at 9 anyway. So I never thought. I thought Mansour Delane had a good chance of getting to the Cowboys, but I did think the Chiefs were the first landmine. So once they traded up and took Mansour Delane, then that was okay. Now you're interested because now the Washington's on the board and Sonny Styles is still sitting there. That's a name that has been heavily linked to Washington. But you also think, okay, well, they could potentially take Caleb Downs as well. And they take the linebacker Sonny Styles. I had also went on record and said I would prefer if Washington was going to take somebody, I would prefer it to be Sonny Styles. I think Sonny Styles is going to be a very good player. He could potentially be great for Washington, but he wasn't like the name that I wanted more than anything for the Cowboys defense. especially like if it was a choice between Caleb Downs and Sonny Styles. So New Orleans took wide receiver Jordan Tyson, which I remember thinking at the time sort of crushed me because then I was shook at that point because I was sitting there like, oh God, like if Jordan Tyson had been there at 10, I felt like the Giants would take Jordan Tyson at 10 and that would leave the door open for the Cowboys to get Caleb Downs. Thankfully, Cleveland took the tackle Fano, which allowed Malinois, who I do think the Giants probably were very interested in taking at 5, to fall right in their lap at 10. So they were still able to improve their offensive line, which is something that the Giants definitely needed to do. And it left the door open for Caleb Downs. Now, some people were like, well, why did the Cowboys trade up one spot? Like, why'd you give up draft capital just to move up one spot? I have zero issues with it because, especially as you saw what happened later in the draft with pick 20, what if somebody traded up to get Caleb Downs? Because Caleb Downs, who many people before the draft were saying not only was the best safety in this class, but he was like the best defensive player. Some people had Caleb Downs as high as ranked number 2 on their board. Some had him at number 1, that he was the best football player in this draft. And so to have that type of player, someone could have very easily jumped ahead of the Dolphins, who also could have said, you know what, hey, let's go ahead and take this player that fell right into our laps because they need everything. And so I give the Cowboys so much credit to saying, you know what, if we'll give you 12 so you don't have to move anywhere and you get 2 extra picks in the 5th round. And it was smart. It was very smart in what they did. So they moved up to 11, guaranteed to not leave it to chance. Like they could have left it to chance, but they said, no, we're going to guarantee that we get our guy. And I was thrilled. And at that point, and I know it took a long time to go through just all that scenario, but we were texting. I'm in this Cowboys text shade with, and I'm texting. I'm like, they're gonna get him. They're gonna get Caleb Downs. And at that point, it's like everybody's fired up. Now there was this dream at this point where now you have Ruben Bain, the defensive end from Miami, falling down the board. Like he's going out of the top 10. He's not picked at 12. He's not picked at 13. And then in my mind, I'm sitting there thinking like, oh my God. I was like, if Ruben Bain were to fall to 20 because people really are bothered by his short arms, I was sitting there in my mind dreaming. I was like, please tell me that the Cowboys are going to get the 2 players that I've been dreaming of them to get in the 1st round, Caleb Downs and Ruben. Like if they had got Caleb Downs and Ruben, I'd have been in jail. I'd have been in jail. I would have been in jail because I've been going crazy. I would have been going nuts if the Cowboys had got Caleb Downs and Ruben Bain. So Ruben Bain went 15th to the Bucks. When the Cowboys were on the clock at 20, it was very clear that they wanted to go defensive end. I love the defensive end from Miami, Akeem Mesidor, Daniel Jeremiah, Malachi Lawrence. I didn't have an issue with that because I like Malachi Lawrence, especially based off of what he did in the Senior Bowl. And I did want the Cowboys to trade back because I was hoping they could possibly trade back and pick up a 2nd round pick, which is what I was hoping for. Like maybe still stay in the 1st round or just move right back at the end of the 1st round and still somehow get a 2nd round pick or a higher 3rd round pick. They traded with the Eagles. They picked up 2 4s, which is good because they lost 2 5s, but hey, you picked up 2 4s, which is better than 2 5s. And they were able to get the guy that they really wanted, which was Malachi Lawrence, who has like high upside. Some people are arguing like, oh, it was a reach, because he's probably not going to be a day 1 starter. But my thing is, and the argument for people that are saying, oh, he's not a starter, that's to me an old school way of thinking of defense, because what you need on defense, especially if you look at the really good defenses, like you look at Houston, you look at you look at San Francisco's defense, you look at Philadelphia's defense, they have contributors beyond the starters. Like they have contributors beyond the starters that come in and play a role or like they might not start, but they have a significant role. And because of it, it makes the defense overall better. And so that's what the Cowboys have been needing. Like, first off, the starters they had were bad. A lot of the starters they had on defense were bad. And then the people behind them, because you were like, well, give this guy a shot. Okay, well, they put that guy in there and they were just as bad, if not worse. And you sit there and go, okay, now I understand why they're not why they're not started. So they need guys that can just flat out play. So that's why I had zero issues with what they did with taking Malachi Lawrence. Quickly going through the rest of the guys, Jayshon Barham. Again, when I was doing mocks, I had the mindset of him being an edge. But the interesting thing to me is people that break down film that I like trust would talk about how he was actually just an edge that one season, and then before that he was an inside linebacker, and they thought the play of him as an inside linebacker, the tape for that looked so much better than him as an edge. So it was good to hear that the Cowboys are intending on using Jayshon Barham as an actual linebacker as opposed to an edge, but he also has that versatility that shows that he can be an edge. And again, one of the other things that I was saying with Christian Parker when I was going through some of the players that I would love for them to have is players that have that versatility. So into the fourth round, you're not going to leave a draft where the Cowboys don't take an offensive tackle. It's not a shock to me that they took an offensive tackle. I'm, the only thing for me with the offensive tackle that they took, Drew Shelton, at first, I was like, oh, okay, intriguing. Like, especially like when you listen to the breakdowns of him and that he's an athlete and he's a good athlete, and so you sit there and you can play left tackle. It makes you go, okay, well, Tyler Guyton, I would love a battle between him and Tyler Guyton. Like, if Tyler Guyton wins it, great. But if not, then good. Now, some of the film that you've been, like, the Cowboys have released like a highlight package for Drew Shelton. Yeah, it was it was a little scary because you're like, well, highlight package, that should be all the fireplace. That should look great. Yeah, that doesn't look great. Doesn't look too hot. And I mean, I'm not a film breakdown guy. In fact, I even tweeted it. If you go to my Twitter at WCW Poet, I don't tweet a ton, so it's not hard to find. I even asked the film guys, I go, yeah, this doesn't look that great to me. So you guys tell me. The one pick, and the guys that's in the Cowboys took Shane will attest to this. The one pick that did upset me, and I even admit it, I said there's not going to be a Cowboys draft where I love every single pick that the Cowboys do. They took the cornerback Devin Moore from Florida. I really didn't know much. Again, I didn't know much about Devin Moore. But when I was looking into him, it was a little disturbing to me because he's very injury prone. Like, he has not played a full season. But people that break down film, and we'll get into what Dane Brugler has to say about all these players, really seem to love the player. They loved his size. They loved his measurables. They love how he plays press man. They think he's a good zone corner. That's something that has been driving me crazy under Dan Quinn, under Zimmer, under, Eberflus for sure, is how I feel like the Cowboys have been absolutely awful in playing zone. I don't know if the players to me were smart enough to run zone. It's just whatever it was, they weren't good at it. So to get a corner that could possibly be good in man or zone, that's good. The last pick they had in the fourth round, which was LT Overton. And this is why you have to be careful, I guess, and try to not be part of hive mind or groupthink. Again, I'm not film breakdown guy, so I lean on the experts. I lean on the people that really do the work to break down film. Brian Brodus and Watch Lombardi are two of my favorites. They have a podcast called Doing All Right, and it's that's like probably my favorite Cowboys content creators podcast that I do listen to, and they were not fans of LT Overton. Like, I knew who LT Overton was because when they were doing all their player breakdowns leading up to the draft, LT Overton was not getting rave reviews from them. And so my only experience or knowledge from LT Overton was that he was a disappointment. Like he was a 5-star recruit at Texas A&M, and then he transferred to Alabama. And at no point in time did this dude look like a 5-star. Like nobody raved about LT Overton as being a 5-star recruit. So when you hear that kind of stuff and you see that's the pick, you're like, oh man, like especially when there's a player like I told you guys, Harold Perkins Jr. from LSU is somebody I was dreaming for the Cowboys to take, and he didn't get taken until the 6th round, which after the 4th, when I knew the Cowboys didn't have another pick until pick 218, I was praying that Harold Perkins will go undrafted because the Cowboys do really well typically in signing undrafted free agents. So, but again, while LT Overton is listed as an edge, the Cowboys' plan is to use him as a defensive tackle to really take that Osa Odighizuwa's role since they traded him to San Francisco, because they didn't trade Osa because of the talent. They really traded him because they didn't want to pay 3 defensive tackles over $20 million, which I understand. And it's fine because I love Kenny Clark. I love Quentin Williams, of course. And so we'll hopefully LT in this new role will be a contributor. And then finally, Anthony Smith is a wide receiver from East Carolina. He's tall. And the other thing known is that he's a burner. And he also has punt return and kick return experience. Let me go on record and say I am not a fan of KaVontae Turpin. I'm just not. There was a play in San Francisco. I saved a screenshot of it. I drew like 3 red lines. I'll post it at the end of this episode just so you can see what I'm talking about, the image that I am talking about. Because ever since this moment in San Francisco in the playoff game where they had beat Tampa Bay, then they go to San Francisco, and I felt like that was one Cowboys team that I thought had a great chance of making it to a Super Bowl, at least the NFC Championship game. It's a kickoff return. KaVontae Turpin has a chance. All you have to do, you can run middle, you can run left, you could run right. If you run right, he's going as a touchdown. You run left, he's going as a touchdown. You run middle, you're going to run into a player, or you're at least going to get slowed down by the kicker, and you'll probably get tackled. And out of those choices, out of these choices, and in fact, let me make it bigger for you. Out of these choices, you can see that KaVontae Turpin chose, like, just look at it here. And I'm describing it for people that's in the audio board. Again, you could go right. He has a guy blocking. A guy is blocking for him. Like if he goes right. And he could go left where there's literally nobody there, or you could go right to the middle where there is the kicker. And I could even argue, like, even if he did go middle, like, because potentially some people could say, well, he could go middle if he just makes the kicker mid. Like, my thought is go right where you had somebody blocking somebody. Go left where there's literally nobody there, or you just run directly middle. And this dude ran directly middle and got caught. And the Cowboys actually ended up only getting a field goal on that drive and still ended up being down by 4, where if they got a touchdown, they could have potentially tied it. It just, but ever since then, the juice has not been worth the squeeze when it comes to KaVontae Turpin. And so I am perfectly content if Anthony Smith comes in for no other reason other than to compete with KaVontae Turpin. I am perfectly fine with that. So now I do want to get into the talk about these players and what did Dane Brugler actually think of the players that the Cowboys drafted. And up first is Caleb Downs. I'm not going to go through if you don't have the Athletic or like if you don't have a subscription to the Athletic, even like I highly recommend it because I enjoy the writers that they have there, and especially Dane Brugler when it comes to draft. And so this was his write up for Caleb Downs. I'm just going to go with his takeaway, and then touch on his a little bit of his strengths, and then like maybe a little bit of his weakness. But Dane's takeaway for Caleb Downs is Downs sees the field like it's a chessboard and plays with an exceptional combination of intelligence, urgency, and toughness, allowing him to be disruptive from anywhere on the field. His intangibles and on-field versatility will make him an impactful NFL starter early in his career. Some of his strengths that Dane lists is that he's rangy, physical presence, and drops the hammer on arrival. He's a full speed tackler with outstanding balance and twitch to break down in space. He wraps, keeps his eyes before his feet, and accelerates through the target. He's quick to read keys and fly to the football from anywhere. He dissects route combinations almost instantaneously for breakups or minimal post catch gains. He shows read and react bursts of a cornerback when driving on throws. He didn't allow a passing touchdown in 2 seasons at Ohio State. That was 874 coverage snaps. He's balances high level intelligence with disciplined decision making, veteran level communication skills. I want to say that one again. Veteran level communication skills, played on both punt return and punt return, on punt return and punt coverages, had a 79-yard return touchdown versus Indiana in 2024. He's elite competitiveness, toughness, voted one of 14 captains in 2025, and his teammates praise his all business attitude towards practice and meetings. An NFL scout said, our coaches are going to love him because he's a process guy. How he prepares influences how he plays. He's proven to be durable and didn't miss a game in his 3 college seasons. Now, he only has a very few weaknesses. Weaknesses that Dane lists is he doesn't have the frame, he doesn't have the frame some desire at the position. He is only 5'11", but he kept everything top down and was rarely asked to turn his back to the line. He's always around the football, but posted mediocre ball production. And what that means is he's not a huge get turnovers or force fumble guys, but like like he had said earlier in the strengths, he limits the big plays. Does a great job reading routes and the quarterback, but would like to see him take more chances. So he's not a gambler. We've had gamblers, and I know Cowboy fans are like, yeah, we won ball hawks. So he's not technically a ball hawk, but he's where he's supposed to be. Can occasionally misjudge open field speed and pursuit angles. So that's the weaknesses of Caleb Downs. But one of the things that was so frustrating about the Cowboys defense last year is how many big plays they gave up. Like I even talked about it in Peter Schrager's mock draft, who broke down, where the Cowboys defense ranked in terms of big plays and explosive plays. Like Darren Woodson was on the ticket in Dallas, and he was breaking down, explaining how part of the main issue that he saw that was so frustrating with the Cowboys defense from last season is how like poorly they were even lined up. Like before the play was even stepped, the Cowboys players were misaligned, didn't know what they were supposed to do. Caleb Downs is literally going to be like a quarterback for the defense, and he's going to be able to get guys lined up. It's speculated that he could be the green dot from what we've heard from the Cowboys press when the Cowboys did the post-draft press conference, is that they don't expect Caleb Downs to be the green dot. In fact, they don't even want the safety to be the green dot. They would prefer a linebacker. The green dot is the person that's calling the defensive plays. But they did say Caleb would call some defensive plays because he's capable. He's that smart to do so. So that is why Cowboys fans have been going crazy and are overly excited for having Caleb Downs. Let's go to Malachi Lawrence and see what Dane Brugler had to say about Malachi Lawrence, the the defensive end from UCF. So he was the 7th ranked edge on Dane Brugler's board. So he was the top within the top 7 edges. Dane's takeaway: Lawrence is a linear mover and lacks ideal bend, but he offers skill as a pass rusher, stack and shed toughness versus the run, and the demeanor that will help him carve out a starting role at the next level. Despite being an older player, he still has upside. His strengths, his mid-cut frame with broad shoulders and decent build, quick vertical takeoff, uses long arms to initiate rush sequences, complements his long arms moves with a variety of swats, clubs, and push and pull moves, darting lateral cuts to cross blockers' face and create entry points, has a knack for locating and swiping the football when he gets near the quarterback, shoots his hand in the run game to leverage the edge, plays with urgency and lateral pursuits to keep the ball contained, aggressive on the field, easygoing off of it. NFL scout says he keeps to himself, not a leader type, but he's has very good toughness and is a solid football character. Finished top 10 in the UCF history in career sacks. Now, the weaknesses has a little bit more than Caleb Downs, but he says his weaknesses are he's an upright rusher, moves with some stiffness in attack. He exhibits more pops of power than overwhelming strength. Has trouble escaping big offensive tackles who engulf at the point of attack. Lean muscle mass, doesn't have like the ideal bulk for edge work. Missed tackles are a byproduct of his revving hot motor. Has had surgery on both of his shoulders over the years and had just 72 tackles in 39 career games. He's going to be a project, but one of the things is that he, like Dane says, is that even though he's an older player, there is still very clear upside with him, and so that is why I'm still even excited. Now, one of the things that was funny, especially in terms of a defensive end with the last name of Lawrence, is one of my friends from the text chain, especially with how I turned on DeMarcus Lawrence, was like, "Hey, we got another Lawrence," and he's like, watch Will, go crazy on him at some point and talk about he must be related to Marcus. Here's the thing: if Malachi Lawrence even actually plays like DeMarcus Lawrence while he's with the Cowboys, that would not be a bad thing, because DeMarcus Lawrence, even though I went on this rant about how much I was mad and hated DeMarcus Lawrence, he was a good player for the Cowboys. Like he wasn't great. He wasn't like a Hall of Fame player. He wasn't like an all pro or a superstar, but he was very good. He was very decent. And the Cowboys definitely did miss him when he was going. So there you go. I don't hate DeMarcus Lawrence, even though he definitely pissed me off when he went to Seattle. Next we have is Jayshawn Barham. And again, he was seen as an edge, but the Cowboys are going to be using him as an inside linebacker. Dane's takeaway on Barham before the draft: Barham must improve his discipline and refinement to stay on the field, but he can create disruption based on just his explosiveness and high activity level. He will need a patient coaching staff ready to cultivate his athletic upside. And I'm trying to see where Dane actually had him ranked in terms of edges, because again, he saw him as an edge, and he had him. I just want to see really quick. He had him ranked as the 16th edge on his board. Now, again, the Cowboys aren't using him as a defensive end. He's going to be used or as an edge or even outside Russian linebacker. He's going to be used as an inside linebacker. Here's his strengths: he's an explosive athlete with functional length and big hands, bursts out of his stance, and his lightning quick first step. Former Michigan linebacker coach Brian Jean Mary said, in terms of physical talent, he's one of the best I've ever been around. He's able to contort his body and turn the corner at near full speed. Twitchy movements when reacting to backfield action, physical mentality, slams his hands into blocks, always in chase mode, outstanding speed from the backside, linebacker background, doesn't look out of place dropping into zone. Very reserved and plays with quiet toughness. NFL scout said, I could barely get 2 words out of him, but the coaches say he responds well to them. He's durable, collected over 47 starts in his career. And the thing you'll notice is that we get deeper into some of these players, they'll have more weaknesses, of course. His weaknesses: narrow torso with a mediocre bulk and tapered lower body, inexperienced pass rush moves, and lacks a polished plan. Attacks before reading, will fly into the backfield, pass the football, too easily pushed upfield behind the quarterback, inconsistent snap anticipation, offside penalties started to pile up, violent, aggressive hands, but struggles sifting through bodies, gets in trouble going for big hits instead of short tackles, head butted an official during the Ohio State game, resulting in a crucial penalty. I actually do remember that. I saw a clip of that. Um, I'll say this: he's a little nuts, but sometimes with defense, you need some guys that are a little nuts. I guess the other good thing about the way that the Cowboys want to use Jayshon Barham is that like one of the weaknesses that he listed is that he said he's inexperienced in pass rules and lacks a polished plan. The good thing is that the Cowboys aren't going to be using him that way. Like he'll probably do get some pass rush, but if so, it'll probably be blitzing or you don't know where he's going to come from. He can definitely be used as a chess piece. And one of the things that when I heard people talking about Jayshon Barham and breaking him down is that they use him in the same sense of Overshown. And Overshown, especially the first year he got hurt and you didn't get to see him, but he was shining in the preseason. And then his second year, when he actually did play like 13 games, he was great. He looked like he was on track to be an all-pro, and then he got hurt and his season was ended short. And then he came back later in the middle of last season, and you didn't see the same DeMarvion Overshown, but I mean nobody on the Cowboys defense looked good under Matt Eberflus scheme. He didn't look like awful. He didn't look as bad as say like Kenneth Murray or Jack Sanborn. That's for damn sure. But he didn't look like the demo that you saw the year before. But Jayshon Barham is definitely getting compared to him. And if that's the case, man, and he's actually stays on the field and is healthy, that makes me excited. Up next we have is Drew Shelton, the offensive tackle from Penn State. He was rated as the 15th tackle on Dane Brugler's board. Dane's takeaway, and I'm gonna actually not go into as much detail as I did the first three picks, but Dane's takeaway on Drew Shelton is an interesting developmental prospect because of his impressive big man athleticism. He'll struggle to win at the NFL level, though, unless he improves his functional strength and finishing toughness. He projects as an NFL swing tackle with starting potential. His strengths: adequate height and length with solid bulk in the lower half, a natural athlete with light feet and body fluidity, quick out of his stance in both run and pass games, reacts well on the fly to recover when caught out of position, comfortable with any type of pull blocks, stays ahead of second level blocks. He was flagged just once in 2025, holding in week 1. That is actually pretty awesome here. Caught a 2-point conversion against Florida International in 2025, but it was negated by a holding penalty. Not an alpha personality, but respected by his teammates and described as super mature by coaches. The NFL scout says he's a low-key leader who does everything right. He'll fit in whatever locker room he goes to. He's durable. Started 34 games at left tackle, including 29 straight. Now, some of his weaknesses, I won't go through all of them, but his play strength is a major concern. Doesn't create consistent movement in the run game. He'll get caught in a tight base and has very few answers versus power. Inconsistent weight distribution and punch timing. And he had shoulder surgery after a 23 season and missed the 2024 spring practices. So, again, the Cowboys are always going to take a tackle. Offensive line is funny because it's one of those things where sometimes you can find good players early. Sometimes you can find some hidden gems late. Travis Bass, Travis. Is it Travis? No, Trevor Bass. My God, sorry. Trevor Bass, who's an offensive guard for the Cowboys, is he was actually undrafted, and he's shown that he probably should have been drafted because he's a solid contributor. So if Drew Shelton is nothing more than that, like the hope is for him to literally put a legit challenge to Tyler Guyton. But if not, if he's at least a solid contributor, that would be helpful for the Cowboys there. Then we got Devin Moore, the cornerback from Florida. And this he was the 16th rated corner on Dane's board. He is, let's see here, Dane's takeaway. Moore's injury history is a bright red flag, but he is good size. He's a good size cover man with speed and ball skills to be a scheme versatile developmental option. He is high risk, high reward prospect because of the durability questions. His strengths: he has rare height and body length for the position. He's slightly above average speed and bursts on a linear plane. Patiently uses his size to stall releases and swarm receivers early in the route. Operates cleanly in phase to bracket receivers, pin them against the sideline, and stay in position. His has length to obstruct catch points and jar the ball loose. 0 penalties over junior and senior seasons. Played on punt coverages on all 4 years and can be a day one vice and can be day one vice in the NFL. Reserved, good-natured personality. NFL scout says more of an introvert, but an A-plus human. He wants to be a good teammate. And finally, played double-digit games in 2025. So I'm just going to jump to the biggest red flag in his weakness here, which is his extensive injury history. Missed the start of the draft process because of a groin surgery in December of 2025. So he's, missed 6 games as a junior, 1 because of an AC joint sprain, final 5 with a right shoulder injury, which off-season labrum surgery in December of 2024. He missed 5 games as a sophomore because of back issues and a concussion. He missed time during his senior year of high school with his left shoulder injury, re-aggravated lingering shoulder issue during freshman year at Florida, and required season-ending surgery in November of 2022. So, as JR had pointed out before, the Cowboys don't seem to have a really good track record with injured guys. I'm going to say this. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Sean Lee was an injured guy. He pretty much was an injured guy his entire career. But when he actually played, he was very good. He was very solid. And so I would like to get more from that, from Devin Moore. But like Dane said, he's high risk, high reward. And we'll see how it goes. I will say this really quick, super quick. With one of the things I remember when I was going back and forth with JR, we were talking about Will Johnson, the cornerback from Arizona, and JR had dropped at the end, like Will Johnson goes, well, he was hurt. He got hurt. He did get hurt, but it was the last game of the season, and it was actually a minor injury. It wasn't anything structurally major, and it was literally like they shut him down because it was literally the last game of the season. So I just wanted to get that out there in regards to Will Johnson. Finally, we have LT Overton, or actually, no, I'm sorry, not finally. We have LT Overton, who's going to be used as a defensive tackle for the Cowboys. He was listed as an edge. I said it's funny enough because I said Jayshon Barnes was the 16th edge on Dane's board. LT Overton was the 17th edge on Dane's board. But again, neither of those guys are going to be used as edges. LT Overton is going to be used as a defensive tackle. But here's Dane's takeaway. Overton isn't yet the sum of his parts and hasn't turned the flashes into consistency, and there is no guarantee he ever will. But the potential is enticing from a player who's still very young. His ability to fit different schemes and alignments only bolsters his draft projection. His strengths: he's stout, versatile frame with room to get up to 290 pounds if desired. He's a balanced athlete for his size, both in space and when working through contact. Plays square the run game and uses his long arms to control the point of attack. His lower body power and strong hands help him leverage versus double teams. He has bull power and long arm force to walk blockers backward, put different swipes and quick club moves on tape, encouraging fluidity on stunts and when working around blocks. He's not a vocal leader, but well liked by staff and teammates. An NFL scout says he's accountable, not going to rock the boat, and he's versatile. His versatile experience at almost every D line technique. Now, the weaknesses, again, I'll just get into a little bit of it. Inconsistent snap anticipation, often late off the ball, tends to forecast rush plan, 4+ pressures in just 2 of 13 games. Doesn't get pushed back often, but can be pinned inside. Run game losses often come from having elevated pad level. Gets out of control at times as a tackler. So again, the thing that I think is the high for LT Overton is that he's versatile, and he has like the good size to be like that, to play that Osa role. And it'll be interesting to see how Christian Parker, the Cowboys' new defensive coordinator, wants to use him. And then finally, we have Anthony Smith, who is the wide receiver from East Carolina that the Cowboys took with their final pick. He was Dane's 38th wide receiver on his board. And so here we go. Anthony Smith, Dane's takeaway. Smith is a linear route runner with drop issues, but his senior speed will help separate him both on the field and in an NFL training camp. So he's 6'2", he's 6'2", 197 pounds, and had a 4.4 40. So like he's a burner. And if you look at some of his highlights, that's the biggest thing that you see from him. In fact, actually, I'm sorry, Dane doesn't even have his strengths and weaknesses here. So that kind of tells you where he goes with. I'll read a little bit of his overview here. He was a 3-star recruit. Smith didn't receive his first offer Navy until a month into his senior season, and he committed to NC State after receiving an offer in November. Despite being the fastest player on the Wolfpack roster, he struggled to find steady offensive snaps. After his 4th year at NC State, he entered the transfer portal and transferred to East Carolina, where he started every game the past 2 seasons, surpassed 1,000 yards receiving in 2025, and his younger brother, Evan Powell, is a rising redshirt freshman on the defensive line at ECU. So he's tall, lean athlete. Smith has immediate speed to win vertically as a deep threat or with the ball in his hands. He can burst off the line, but needs to develop his release package to avoid being rerouted by early contact. Though he has adequate hands, he is inconsistent in framing the football and relies too much on his body, which leads to drops. His questionable play strength shows mid-route, and as a blocker, he wasn't a returner in college and didn't play special teams at ECU. So that's Anthony Smith. So, I mean, he's a wide receiver that's a burner, and who knows what he could do in camp, but we'll see. But that's the draft class for the Cowboys. Oh, hold on a second. That's the wrong picture that I wanted to use there. That's what I was trying to get. So this is the draft class for the Dallas Cowboys. And how do I actually feel about them? What is my very early grade? Yeah, I'm sorry. It's got to be A. It's, Caleb Downs alone makes this draft class pretty fired up. But when you add like Malachi Lawrence, the possibility of the linebacker Jayshon Barham, the possibility of a solid swing tackle in Drew Shelton. Again, the guys that they took after Caleb Downs give you really high possibility. Devin Moore, again, high risk, high reward, and LT Overton, if he's used right, who knows what it could be. So the point is, one of the best things about this draft class in general and what the Cowboys did with it is that they raised the floor of the Cowboys defense. The Cowboys defense was absolutely putrid. They've completely turned over that's secondary, and that alone is reason to be excited about what they can do. And so, yeah, I'm pretty pumped at the potential of what the Cowboys defense could be, because it doesn't have to be great. Like, the thing is that the offense was so good last year. You didn't need the defense to be great. You just didn't want them to be putrid. And last year the defense was putrid. So as long as the defense is not putrid, then there's the potential for them to be decent. And so that's my hope when it comes to the Cowboys defense. So that's going to do it for the review of the 2026 Dallas Cowboys draft class. Up next is what am I watching? Now comes the segment, what am I watching? And so I'm going to touch briefly on the two shows that I'd already mentioned the last time I did this. So up first is Daredevil Born Again. As the time of I'm posting it, episode 7 is just dropped on Disney Plus. I haven't watched it yet, but I wanted to talk about episode 6, which brought back the character of Kristen Ritter's Jessica Jones. And it was actually pretty dope seeing her back. You know, I had said before, like, out of the Netflix shows, Jessica Jones was definitely like my second favorite, especially the first and third season. Season 2 was awful. There's no denying that. But season 1 and season 3, absolute fire. And she was great in the Defenders crossover as well. So it was cool seeing Kristen Ritter back. Like, she captures that character perfectly. It was dope seeing her in the action. Some intrigue going on, which makes you excited about the future with her character, especially because they introduce her daughter. If you read the comics, you know who the father of her daughter is. I won't spoil it here, just in case you don't. But the potential of where it's going, and just some of the Easter eggs or the subtle verbal hints that she dropped in the episode were cool, where she was talking about Mr. Charles and how he was trying to recruit people like her with abilities. And that Mr. Charles from early on in the season is working for Valentina De Fontaine, who's part of the Thunderbolts and everything. So it's exciting to see where that could potentially go. I'm looking forward to watching the penultimate episode. There's only 8 episodes this season. I'm looking forward to see what happens in episode 7, especially with the way episode 6 ended with the fight between Kingpin and Daredevil, and something happening to Karen, which leaves you a little bit like, oh, what's gonna happen? So I'm looking forward to that. Next, I wanted to say is I'm still watching The Boys. Episode 5 comes out this week. Excuse me. I've actually, so here's the funny thing with The Boys, because the show is so heavy, I watch it usually like 2 episodes at a time. I like to let them stack, because it's like that's how it is with me. And like, because in 1 minute I'm like, whew, that was tense, or that was crazy, or that was dark, that was bleak. And the way like episode 3 ended was really dark, and you're like, Jesus, like it was so bad. Like, in terms of like what happens in the episode, it just makes you sad a little bit. And so I always need like a palate cleanser. But I can't say this enough. Jensen Ankle Soldier Boy is literally making this season for me, and he is so freaking hilarious. I just, man, he's spectacular. I don't know what's gonna happen to his character at the end of this, but man, I just freaking love Jensen Ankle Soldier Boy, because he's awesome, and he's so freaking, he's just great. And it was funny because like I was even talking about with my coworker today, how like my favorite season of The Boys was season 3, where it introduced Soldier Boy. He's way better than what was in the comic of The Boys. But yeah, nah, he's worth watching it just alone. So yeah. Up next, I want to talk about another Amazon Prime show, which is Invincible. Season 4 has concluded. I know they've already said that they've been working on season 5 and that they're going to be getting these seasons out much sooner. Um, it's funny because like I always say like I have a love-hate relationship with Invincible. Season 1 I thought was spectacular. I thought it was really great. Like the twist on this narrative, which when you first see it feels like very Superman like oh, Superman had a kid with Lois Lane, and then you just come to find out, but what if Superman was like from a race of space Nazis, and you're like, wait, what? It's just so it's just kind of crazy in how this character comes about. And and like I said, season 1 was great. I absolutely hated season 2, and it's mainly because I hate, like, the biggest problem with the show Invincible is the main character itself, Invincible. He's the worst character on the show. I find him so whiny and entitled and self-righteous and annoying, and just half the time he's getting his A kicked. It's just he's very obnoxious. He is very annoying. But season 3 was spectacular. Like, I love season 3, and season 4, which just ended, is even better. Like, it's way better than season 3. It was by far my favorite season of this show. The first 3 episodes are amazing. It knocks it off the park, especially when you get more background on the Viltrumite race and why they are the way they are and how they came to be in the state that they are. It was just very, very entertaining, very good. I was talking to my brother Ricky about it, because his favorite characters a lot of time in adaptations or stories are the villain. I wanted to highlight the villain here, Thrag, who is the leader of the Viltrumites that remain. Yo, one of the other crazy things about, again, with how I watch some shows like Daredevil, I pretty much watch as soon as the episode comes out. They don't usually stack. Like, I have to watch it right away. Invincible, the boys, I like to let them stack, and so a lot of times when you're on social media, you can get spoiled by some things. So I knew that, like, leading into the penultimate episode, or going up, that Invincible and then we're going to be facing Thrag, and they were going to fight Thrag. And I saw people commenting about, yo, this dude is though, like, they're hyping. Like, it was certain things in season 4 that they were hyping. Like, there was a second fight with Conquest, which was another villain that Invincible fought. And I saw people like teasing that and being like speaking in hyperbole about how graphic and how crazy it was. And then I see it was like, whoa, yeah, all right, they wasn't lying. Like, I wasn't prepared. They hyped it, and then you know how it is. Like, when something gets hyped, and then you watch it or you see it, and you go, "What's the big deal? Why did y'all hype it like that?" So I was hearing about this fight with this dude Thrag, and how this dude was all leading up to this thing, and I was thinking like, man, this can't live up to it, dog. Listen, yeah. It was no joke. Like, the dude is no joke, especially in terms of power and how he utilizes it. It's definitely worth watching. Check it out. And Invincible's getting better. The character himself is getting better. And so I'm not hating him as much as I was through the first 3 seasons. He's still not my favorite character. He's still very, 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 very far from my favorite character. Um, but he's not as annoying as he was before. Um, the next show that I wanted to talk about is, this is one that's been out for a while, and I remember starting it, but it's the live action adaptation of the anime One Piece. That's on Netflix. They've had 2 seasons come out. I'm not sure how many seasons they plan on doing it. The one thing that is very clear, the people that create this show absolutely positively love the anime One Piece, and put it into they put it into the production of this show. And I remember, like, I liked the anime One Piece, but it wasn't like something that I fell in love with, and I definitely fell off from it. And now that even I have the ability, like, it was funny, it was like years ago I had found out that they were still making it. And I remember being shocked because I was talking to my niece about, like, This dude hasn't found a One Piece yet, and he hasn't become the king of the pirates. Like, this dude should have been the king of the pirates 20 times over. But One Piece, the anime, is actually still ongoing. And one of the great things about this, at least one of my coworkers who loves this anime as well, is saying the great thing about this live action show is that they take a lot of what was already in the anime and they, cut out all the filler. Like, one of the biggest issues that I've had with the anime Dragon Ball Z is that there was like, I remember when he fought like Frieza, for example, and that was like 20 something episodes of him fighting this one guy. And you're sitting there kind of like, all right, this is a little ridiculous. So One Piece, this show, kind of does that same thing because the anime did that same kind of thing where it's like a ridiculous amount of episodes fighting this one thing or fighting these one group of people. And this show kind of shortens it and they introduce other characters earlier. And so they get to things much quicker. And so it makes the show very entertaining. I am halfway through the first season. I'm enjoying it. It's like it truly has captured this anime and brought it to life. Like, one of the funny things was I remember when Netflix did a live action adaptation of Cowboy Bebop. I didn't hate it. But it definitely wasn't as good as Cowboy Bebop, which is like up there. I waffle with it sometimes because oftentimes I put it as like my number one favorite anime of all time. Sometimes it drops to 2 or 3, but point is it's up there. And so the live action adaptation of it, I thought John Cho, who played Spike Spiegel in it, was good. I love the actor, and I apologize because I should have looked it up, but I wasn't planning on talking about Cowboy Bebop live action. I believe his last name is Mustafa, but he was fantastic as Jet Black. He also played Bushmaster in season 2 of Luke Cage, and so they were great. The actress that played Faye Valentine, I want to say is Danielle Padilla. Don't you have to fact check me on that, but she was not great. She was very annoying. She got actually better as the season went on, but she wasn't Faye to me, and it was very annoying. But anyway, I'm sorry. I'm spending way too much time talking about Cowboy Bebop, which is on Netflix, but which was decent, but unfortunately didn't get a season 2. At least One Piece has been a huge success. Fans have actually loved it. They are going to make more seasons. They've already had season 2. They're working on season 3. So yeah, watch the live action version of One Piece. And then that brings me to my next show that I want to talk about, which is season 2 of The Citadel. So season 2 hasn't come out yet. It comes back on May 6th. But you can watch season 1. They also have a spinoff called The Citadel Diana. Watch that. It's a spy show, but it's almost like it's created by the Russo brothers of Avengers, Infinity War, Avengers Endgame, Captain America, Winter Soldier, Captain America, Civil War. So the Russo brothers created. It's a spy show, but it's very like superhero spy like it's souped up spies. It's an action packed show. I love the first season. There's a mystery element to it because like you have these super agents played by Richard Madden from Game of Thrones and Priyanka Chopra. Priyanka Chopra Jonas. And the first season was great. Like, it has twists in it, has super great action. Stanley Tucci is in it. I love Citadel season 1. I like sometimes when you like it's been a couple years since the first season premiered, and when you have like this little gap in between some of these shows, you get scared because like I got so frustrated when I found out on Apple TV that they canceled the after party, and so when you don't see the shows back right away, you sit there and be like, oh crap, oh god, like they probably canceled it, and you did have like the Citadel Diana, which is like a spinoff that comes off of the way the Citadel season 1 ends. you get scared when you don't see it right away. And so to see that they are bringing back the Citadel for season 2 and it premieres on May 6th made me very happy. So I did want to talk about that because I love that show. I thought I was very entertained by it, and so I'm looking forward to season 2. And then finally, I wanted to touch on a new anime that I've been watching that is on Netflix, which is interesting because Netflix typically reveals, like, puts like a lot of their shows out right away. That sometimes they break them up where they'll put like a couple episodes here and there. Kill Blue is a new anime that is on Netflix, and they've been actually releasing these one at a time. And so, like, I believe there's only I've only seen the first episode, which I thought was very entertaining. It was really interesting. It was also interesting because it kind of goes in conjunction with another anime that I've been watching on Netflix called Mr. Sadamoto, which is about like Mr. Sadamoto is an assassin that falls in love with a woman and decides to settle down and have a family and not be an assassin anymore. And he's totally different from how he looked. And Kill Blue, it's funny because sometimes animes have like this thing where they'll put out all these different animes, but the genres are all like brothers or sisters, or they're like commingled in a way. And so Kill Blue is there's this big time assassin who takes this gets shot by this experimental insect, or stung by this experimental insect, and it ends up reverting him back to when he is 13 years old. And so he has to go undercover for this organization that he's working with in this middle school. And like, I've watched the first episode, it's very funny. It makes me laugh because like when he's this adult, he's 39 years old, which is not old to me, but constantly like other characters, like the younger characters in the show before he's reverted to this 13-year-old, it's like, hey geezer, hey old man. And I was sitting there like, 39? Like, what are you talking about? 39 is not old. Stop it. So, but anyway, it's I'm finding it very entertaining. It's really funny, and I'm looking forward to see where it goes. So those are the TV shows that I am watching. You're listening, or you're watching, the 0 to 100 podcast. So that's going to do it for the 0 to 100 podcast. I appreciate all you guys tuning in and checking it out. Let me know what you thought of the Cowboys draft class. You could leave some comments on this video, or you could even email the show if you want to get even more detailed. It's 0 to 100 pod at gmail.com. That's the number 0 TO100 pod at gmail.com. I will say, I can tell you already what the next episode of the 0 to 100 podcast is going to be about. I went and saw the new Michael Jackson movie, Michael, on Monday with my wife. I will tell you what I thought about it in the next episode, where I'm going to have a round table with my siblings, Kenya, Corey, and Ricky. We all have various differing opinions on this film. If you've ever listened to the 0 to 100 podcast and when my family has been on, we get pretty hyped and animated, especially with our opinions when it comes to entertainment. So you don't want to miss the next episode, where we are going to go into great detail of what we felt about this movie that has made over $217 million already over this past weekend. So stay tuned to see what I thought of this movie. I want to briefly, as I'm closing out the show, talk about the George Pickens saga. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it. I'll probably go into more detail, I'll say, in the next episode. But it's funny to me that, George Pickens, the night of the draft, it was reported that he intends to sign the franchise tag. Also, before the draft, the Cowboys had shared that, like, I did a video on it, that Stephen Jones said they weren't going to give George Pickens a long-term deal. They wanted him to play out on the franchise tag. Um, in our Cowboys text chain, we speculated like what was the significance of them getting it reported that one, they weren't going to sign Pickens to a long-term deal, and then two, that Pickens was going to sign the franchise tag and play. Um, then there was a prominent Twitter figure, Ricky Scoops, who usually breaks a lot of inside information before it actually happens. And he had put out this tweet speculating that the Cowboys really wanted to move up in the draft and draft a wide receiver like, say, Jordan Tyson or Carnell Tate. We speculated that, the Cowboys were kind of putting that out there to kind of force teams to jump ahead and take wide receivers and push defensive players down the board. I don't know. Like, again, I think I said, like, I don't like, I even commented on social media, like, I don't know if I give the Cowboys that much credit, like to be that brilliant or that savvy, especially because they usually telegraph before the draft what they're going to do or what they want to do. But in terms of people freaking out because George Pickens hasn't signed the franchise tag yet, there's voluntary workouts taking place right now, and he hasn't shown up for that. I'm not freaking out because really, first off, it's voluntary workouts. There is no, Michael Parsons didn't show up for voluntary workouts, and that was like, in fact, he didn't show up until the last year when he was trying to get his contract. That's the first time he has showed up for some voluntary workouts. So I'm not making a big deal out of Pickens not signing a franchise tag yet. Like, he does have every intention of signing the franchise tag. The speculation is that people are like, there was this report that Adam Schefter put out there when he was on the Pat McAfee show, which ESPN actually pulled, and they have not put out there because you've got no confirmation from Pickens' agent or Pickens himself. But Adam Schefter put out there that George Pickens will not play on the franchise tag. He wants a long-term deal. And if he doesn't get a long-term deal, he's demanding a trade from the Cowboys. No one from Pickens' camp has confirmed that. And mind you, Adam Schefter is the very one that reported that George Pickens had signed the franchise tag, which Todd Archer had to come out and dispute and say Pickens intends to sign the tag, but he has not signed it. So I have major issues with Adam Schefter because, one, I just think he's a mouthpiece of the agent regardless. Like, he just copies and pastes whatever the agent says. Like, he's not that. Anyway, I'll just leave it at that. But then you had like the Cowboys making some recent signings, like signing wide receiver Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who played for the Packers for years. He played for the Chiefs. In fact, I think he was on the Chiefs Super Bowl team. He played for the I think the last team he was on was the Raiders. I could be wrong. I don't follow MVS like that, but people saw that, and in fact, it was like somebody like Trey Wingo goes, the Cowboys signed Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Pickens hasn't signed a franchise tag. Pickens hasn't showed up for voluntary workouts. You know where this is going. MVS being signed by the Cowboys means absolutely nothing to George Pickens. He's a camp body. Like, if anything, MVS is here to push people like Jonathan Mingo and KaVontae Turpin. Though that's who MVS is a signing of MVS is for. Like, that's to push that. But people sitting there trying to connect all these dots, like, oh, or people coming out saying, "Well, trade Pickens now, just trade him." Here's the thing: the Cowboys put the franchise tag on him, and they put a specific franchise tag on him that allowed to give them the right to first refusal. And so it's like, if anybody signed Pickens, and the Cowboys chose not to match it, then the Cowboys would get 2 first-round picks back. No team negotiated with Pickens. No teams had offered him anything. There's been nothing out there. So there's no number for the Cowboys to play off of. Pickens, like, if he could pull a Le'Veon Bell, he could say, I'm not going to sign the franchise tag. I'll sit this year out. Le'Veon Bell did that. He refused to sign a franchise tag for Pittsburgh. He sat a year out. Didn't play 1 year football. Very next offseason, he went to the Jets, did absolutely nothing. he was awful for New York. In fact, his NFL career was pretty much over at that point. So yeah, Pickens could go that route and attempt that, but at what point would you do that? And you'll turn down $27.5 million just because like you want a long-term deal. And here's the other problem. If he were to do that, it only would re-emphasize like the speculation of how other teams already view George Pickens. Like George Pickens is a wide receiver one ability. He showed it last year when he had an all-pro season, but the Cowboys got him for a third round pick. Like they got an all-pro wide receiver for a third round pick. And yet the speculation of even when people were like, oh, well, they could trade him. No team wanted to give the Cowboys more than a second round pick, the highest that they could even possibly get. And that wasn't even guaranteed. Most teams really just wanted to go ahead and give them a third again. And so you're like, if that's the way that the league are viewing you and they think that you're a crash out, they think you're this type of player. If you're going to refuse to sign this franchise tag and refuse $27.5 million, that's not going to benefit you as a player. So that's part of why I don't freak out, because it only would benefit George Pickens to go ahead and sign the tag. One, because you're going to get $27.5 million. And then two, if you go out there and do the same thing that you did last season, you're going to get paid. You're either get paid by Dallas because they'll go ahead, and the Cowboys have done this to themselves before. They franchise tag a player instead of working out a long-term deal, and the price just kept going up and up. And so, you'll get paid by Dallas, or you'll get franchise tag again, which I think is a real possibility, which the tag amount for next year will be $30 million. And then the Cowboys will try to make you play on that. And if you really are like, oh, I don't want to, then they'll trade you and you'll get paid by the next team. But you refusing to sign the tag and not signing out just doesn't make sense, because it really only hurts George Pickens. And so I spent a little bit more time on it than I wanted to, but that's how I feel about when it comes to the George Pickens situation. And again, you can let me know what you think. Leave a comment on the video. Also, you can email the show again at the 0 to 100pod@gmail.com. And you can follow me on all the socials if you just search at WCW Poet. If you want to subscribe to the 0 to 100 podcast, just search at WCW Poet or 0 to 100 podcast. This has been the 0 to 100 podcast, episode 152, The Early Grade. We out.